Hello, everyone. This is State Senator Gustavo Rivera from the 33rd Senate District in the Bronx and the chair of the Health Committee in the New York State Senate. Now, today we're in the first day of session up here in Albany, and the governor presented what is known as the State of the State. This is an opportunity for the governor to describe to the legislature as well as to all New Yorkers what his plans are for the year. So I wanted to give you a couple of minutes on what my first thoughts are upon hearing what the governor said today. Now, first of all, I'll say that what I'm most concerned about was not what the governor said. There are a lot of things that he said that the state should be doing, and I believe that we certainly need to move in a positive direction in a lot of what he mentioned. However, what I'm more concerned about is what was not said. As I mentioned, I'm the chair of the Health Committee in the Senate, and there's one thing in particular that he only briefly mentioned and unfortunately did not discuss very much, and that relates to our budget deficit. Right now, we have a budget deficit of about $6 billion, and about $4 billion of it is actually tied to Medicaid, which is something that I'm going to deal with directly as the chair of the Health Committee in the Senate. And I'm particularly concerned because the governor only mentioned that he was going to potentially deal with it, maybe related to county contributions, so contributions of the county to the cost of Medicaid. And we also have to remember that just at the very end of the year, there was a cut to providers that the governor made of 1% across the board, which has a direct impact on the most vulnerable all across the state. Look, I know that we're in a difficult situation, but I think that the governor, to lead, should tell us what he's going to do and then do it. And unfortunately, I'm more concerned about what was not said in the speech related to that than what was said. A couple of other things that were not said that I was hoping that he would dive into, particularly because these are issues that I care deeply about, and I know that we can do a lot together. Number one is insulin. The reality is that right now, people across the state, and actually people across the country who are diabetic, have needs of insulin. Sometimes medical drug companies actually hold it over their head. It is a life-sustaining substance, and unfortunately, many people can't afford it. So there's a lot of work that we need to do in the state to make sure that everyone who is a diabetic has access to insulin, regardless of how much money they actually make. The governor briefly mentioned it, but did not go far enough. I think we need to do more on that. He also mentioned briefly medical debt. The reality is that in the state of New York, many New Yorkers are saddled with very serious medical debt, and there are things that we can and should do at the state level to try to address it. He briefly mentions it, but he does not really go deep into it, either in his spoken remarks or in his written remarks. And last but certainly not least, the crisis of overdoses that we have in the state of New York. Now, he did mention the opioid crisis, which is something that has been striking not only the state of New York, but across the country for the last few years. And unfortunately, the only thing that he suggested that we should be doing towards it is change some scheduled drugs to actually make sure that we put more people in prison, as opposed to figuring out how we can save lives. Now, that is incredibly disappointing. The governor should be doing more on this, and unfortunately, he's not. So I would say that there's a lot of things that still need to be said, because what I've learned in the last 10 years in office, this is my 10th year as a legislator, is that you have to wait for the actual document to be in front of you. So the governor made his presentation today, and I thank him for it. He had some good ideas, but I want to see exactly what is on the actual budget. And that is something that we will have in the next couple of weeks. So I will come back to you then after we have the budget, and we'll look deeply into it. And I will make sure that I can report back to you on what is in there. Because the reality is that we have a very, very tough year ahead. And we want to make sure in the legislature that we work along with our governor and as well as the assembly to make sure that we can resolve it. But to do that, we have to be honest with each other about what it is that we're proposing and how we propose to get there. So this is State Senator Gustavo Rivera from the 33rd District signing off. I'll be back in a couple of weeks to tell you everything about what is actually in the budget. Thank you so much for your time.